with sleep deprivation and questions and concerns and anxiety all around parenting.
Yes, I do for sure. Hi guys, welcome to the Mindful Mommies podcast. Mindful, full as in F-U-L-L. I am Brienne Morissette.
And I am Stina Martinez.
And we are sisters-in-law, and combined we have 4 very busy boys. Hi everyone! Welcome to the Mindful Mommy podcast, episode 2. We are talking about home birth today, and we are back and ready to get started. Stina has been sick. It's been a bit of a rough few months.
Yes.
But we have some very exciting news to tell everyone about.
Yeah, those of you that don't know, I have boy number 3 coming in hopefully end of July. My due date is August 6th, but I'm determined to have the baby early as I am with all of my
Yay! Applause! Woo! So we are going to have 5 boys living in this house.
Basketball team.
So that's pretty exciting.
Yeah.
Exciting news.
Yeah, it's
Woohoo.
crazy. It's crazy. But, along with all the joys of pregnancy, as we talked about in our first podcast, there's also lots of struggles and challenges. And the third one has been just like the other 2. It was a lot of nausea in the first trimester. And then I got hit with this like crazy sinus infection, which I haven't had before in my other pregnancies, but apparently sinus infections are another pregnancy thing that can be recurring throughout your pregnancy. So
Who knew?
yes, but
you're feeling better now.
Feeling more like myself, and getting excited for the next one.
Oh my goodness.
Terrifying.
Crazy.
Yeah.
So perfect timing to talk about our topic today, which is home birth.
Mm-hmm.
And Stina's going to dive into all the juicy details today.
Not too juicy.
Yeah, don't worry. We'll
Leave some of it to the imagination.
We'll keep it PG. Okay, so you are getting ready to have baby number 3.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously this topic is on your mind.
Yes.
And with your first baby, you had him in the hospital.
Yes.
Women's.
Yes.
And second baby, you had at home.
Yes.
So what brought you to your decision with your second baby to have this home birth?
Well, with my first pregnancy, my ex-husband and I, we didn't even consider having a home birth. I mean, we thought a lot about whether to have a doctor or midwife. Mm-hmm. And going with midwives was just the natural decision for me. My mom has always been a huge advocate for midwives, and
you definitely introduced the whole midwife thing to me too.
yes,
Yeah,
because
everyone in my family was doctors all the way.
yeah.
And I just loved watching your process with the midwives. It always seemed like it was a lot more relaxed. Mm-hmm. And just not so like medical.
Yes, exactly. I felt with both my pregnancies that we had amazing care from our midwives, and from the doctors that I had, because in my second pregnancy I did have to have some doctors involved, and we'll get more into that later. But I've always had such great care, which is amazing. But my mom had C-sections with both me and my brother. Who have giant heads, as you know.
I've heard all about that.
My birth experience when I was born, my mom had a really sort of traumatic experience because she wanted to have a
natural.
I know I struggle with the word natural. I'm not sure if natural is the right word, because it's still natural having a C-section. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know that's a conversation out there. Anyways, she wanted to have me out to the water slide.
She wanted a vaginal birth.
Oh God, I was trying not to say that word.
Just gotta do it. You just gotta say it.
In school, when we have the sex educators come in and talk to the kids, the way that she explains it to the younger kids is that babies either come out the water slide or they come out the sunroof.
I love
So
that.
so that's what we talk about with my.
But it's also like, just get real. Use the real words.
Oh god.
Penis and vagina. Okay.
Oh, no, it's true.
We're like,
she
it's
also-
like we're in school. Like,
I
it's
know.
like we're elementary students right now and we can't handle ourselves.
I know. But at school, we learn to be body scientists, right? So when you're teaching the children about this, it's really important to use proper language. Like
Well, that's
the
what I've
penis
heard,
and the
yeah.
vagina and the vulva and
Oh,
the
God, that's even worse.
testicles. That word.
Testicles, vulva.
Okay, so we're going to be body scientists. We're going to use proper
we
language.
promised we'd keep it PG.
Yes, we're keeping this. We're just body scientists. We're using proper educational language. Yes.
Okay,
My
so
mom
back
was-
to your mom.
Yes, she was hoping to have a vaginal birth, and unfortunately, because my brother and I both have giant heads, with me, she had to have a C-section, and at that time, 38 years ago, she had to advocate to have my dad there, and it was like a very different experience. So she was quite traumatized by that, and we wish we had her here for this podcast.
She's on vacation in Hawaii right now.
She's in Hawaii, but we'll get to hear her story real life one day soon. Yeah, and then with my brother, she wanted to have a different experience. She tried so hard to have a VBAC, which is a vaginal birth after cesarean. And she had a midwife, and her friend was a midwife. She even took midwifery courses herself because she was really trying to educate herself, and she wanted to feel like empowered and in control of her birth, because she did not feel that way with me.
Yeah, she felt totally out of control, like lost all the reins.
Yeah.
Right, with it?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think she had a much more positive experience having a midwife present with my brother and making sure that she had her birth plan and she had her wishes met. Mm-hmm. But unfortunately, after I think it was like 38 hours of labor, she had to have a C-section in the end.
Which she'll never let Stefan forget about.
Yeah.
She's always reminding.
Labor.
Yeah.
So my mom has always been a huge advocate for midwifery. She also worked in the NICU, which is the neonatal intensive care unit, as a social worker, and saw so many different experiences there, and got to know doctors and midwives and learn a lot about birthing in the hospital and out of the hospital. So for me, when I was pregnant for the first time, I always sort of had midwives in the back of my head, and my ex-husband and I, we talked about it, and he was open to it, and he had a lot of questions, but, we met with the midwives, and they were so great at answering any questions or concerns. And I was so happy that we went with the midwives, because they were amazing. We had a team of 4, and you get to know all 4 of them, and then 1 or 2 is always at your birth. And my water broke with my eldest, and I didn't go into labor. So after like 48 hours of your water being broken and not going into labor, there's a concern for infection. So having a home birth was not an option, but it wasn't really something I ever considered at that time anyways. So I went into the hospital and actually went in to be induced because I hadn't naturally gone into labor. And in the end, I really, really was scared of induction, because I had done a lot of research about how often once one intervention starts, it's sort of like a waterfall effect, and induction can sometimes lead to a higher level of pain because your contractions are more intense, and then sometimes the baby can go into distress, and that can cause the baby to be in distress, which can often lead to C-section.
Right.
And there's this movie, The Business of Being Born. It's an American-made movie with Ricky Lake, but that was when we watched, and a lot of that movie talks about how this waterfall effect of interventions. And I know things are changing and have changed, but there is still a lot of interventions lead to more. Yeah. So after I went to the hospital to be induced, I really, really, really was scared of induction. And I was sitting there waiting for the induction to happen. I had my IV in my hand, and then one of my best friends who's a nurse, she was like, you know what, let's just cap that IV, because she was there to support me as part of my birth team. She's like, let's just cap that IV and get you out walking. So
cool. She
went and got one of the nurses, and we capped it, and we went out walking, and I just walked in circles around the hospital. And got labor happening finally on my own. And then it was as soon as labor started with my first, it was super intense, and it was 4.5 hours from start to finish. And he was out. But I was very unprepared for what it was going to be like to be in that kind of intense labor and pain. Mm-hmm. I think we talked about this before, but I was trying to do some hypnobirthing, and I had recorded all these affirmations, and I was trying to like listen to these affirmations and keep myself calm. And I had this vision of having this sort of like calm birth, and it was not calm at all. No, I was in a lot of pain, and there was a lot of screaming, and I had planned to not.
Weren't you like nauseous too and throwing up?
Yeah,
as well. Which is like, I can't imagine anything worse. Not only you dealing with the pain of labor, but then you're throwing up while
Didn't you throw up when you were in labor?
No,
you didn't.
I did
threw
not
up with both
throw
of
up
them.
at all. Neither. But I've never been a thrower. I've never been somebody that throws up just easily. Like I've not been. But yeah, I just can't imagine.
Yeah.
Just like losing complete control out of everything.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
awful.
This is a little side gross story, but when I was walking in circles around the hospital trying to get my labor started with my first, I was super hungry, and so we ordered pizza to the hospital parking lot. And I ate like almost an entire pizza because I was so hungry, and I kind of knew that you weren't supposed to eat just in case you had to get like an epidural or have surgery.
And because of digestion.
Yeah, but I was so hungry, and I'd been waiting so long to go, and I was like, whatever, I'm eating pizza. And so I ate pizza with sun-dried tomatoes on it. And then later, when I was in labor, I was in the shower because I really wanted to be in the bath, but I wasn't allowed because my water had been broken. So I was in the shower, and I started throwing up in the shower. And the nurse came, and she was so concerned because she thought that there was blood in my vomit.
Oh.
But I was like, in between contractions, she's like, okay, we have to get you out of the shower. I'm seeing like something in your
vomit.
Oh God, such another bad word. And I was like, oh no, that's just sun-dried tomatoes from the pizza I ate. And the nurse looks at me, she's like, you just made my week. That's hilarious.
That's so funny. Oh, God.
Yeah. So my first son's birth was very intense. By the time it was time to sort of push with transition time, I was asking for drugs, and they were saying it was too late.
Oh, I didn't know that you were asking for drugs.
Yeah.
Okay.
I had a code word with my midwife and my ex-husband that I decided on, that if I was like desperate, I would use the code word. I never used the code word. So I guess like deep in the back of my brain, I still wanted to go drug-free.
Yeah.
But I remember looking at my midwife, and my mom was there too, and I looked at my mom saying, I can't do this. I can't do this. I think I need drugs. I can't do this. And then I think my mom looked at the midwife, and the midwife was like, too late.
Too late,
like,
yeah.
It's too late now for anything.
Baby's coming.
And they offered me the gas, but because I'd been throwing up, I didn't want to put the mask on my face.
Yeah.
So I was like, no, I don't want to put anything on my face. I'm scared I'm going to throw up into that thing.
Oh God, I was sucking on that thing so hard. I loved the gas.
You loved it?
Well, I mean, you know what I liked about it was that it gave me something, and I remember, I don't know who said it to me. They're like, because I remember saying, I don't want the gas. It doesn't do a thing. Because the first one with my first baby, the gas was like, forget it. Yeah. And I remember, I think I even threw it at them. Like, I was like, forget it. I don't want this. It's not doing anything for me.
Yeah.
And then with the second one, somebody said to me, okay, just when you're doing the gas, what's actually really good about it is using it to focus, because it helps you focus on your breathing.
Yeah.
So I was just going like, and I it's not that it took the pain away. It just gave me something to focus on. And then what was funny was I swear I turned into like a comedian once the baby was out of me. Like I was cracking all these jokes afterwards, and I was like, who the hell would have done that? Like, why would anybody do that? Like, it was just like, it was just funny. Like I was like, wow, you're being really funny even to myself. I was thinking I was pretty funny. But yeah, that's kind of what the gas did for me. It just made me kind of cuckoo. But yeah.
It's fun. It lightens the mood.
Yeah, it definitely did. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you had that experience in the hospital.
Yes,
which was pretty traumatic.
Yeah, and when he was when he actually was born, I was, and in the whole labor process, I imagined, because at Women's they have these beautiful birthing rooms with these
I know. You
low
picture
lighting,
yourself. Yeah.
and
You've got your playlist of music ready,
yeah.
and some people even bring candles.
Yes, yeah. And you tour the hospital in advance, and you see these beautiful birthing rooms. And because my birth was considered high risk because my water had been broken for over 48 hours and they were worried about infection, I gave birth in a room that looked like an operating room.
Ugh.
And so I remember just like being
that
on
vision.
the floor, on these mats, like
Oh my
in the
gosh,
room,
that's awful.
laboring, and then on this table that looked like an operating table. And I understand it was for my safety and the baby's safety, and I would do it all again
That's
to make sure.
scary though. Like I can see why that would be scary.
It just didn't feel, it didn't feel safe.
Yeah.
Even though it was all for us to be safe and for, in a moment's notice, for someone to have to run in and help, a doctor had to run and help. But in the end, we didn't need a doctor, and the midwives caught the baby, and it was
Fine, all good.
It was all good, all fine. He was healthy, I was healthy, and it was really good. But I was not really prepared for that. So when it came to...
And you come out of it and you're just like, what a whirlwind.
Yeah.
Like, what just happened? Oh my gosh. And now I've got this baby.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my body is recovering
yeah.
and in pain. And
I remember with my second baby, because same thing happened to me. It was too late for me. I had an epidural with my first, too late for the second. My baby came in 45 minutes. But I remember getting out of the car from the hospital, and you were there to greet us with our new baby. And I just looked at you and I was like, why didn't you tell me? Like, you never told me what it was like to have a baby without an epidural. I felt
Didn't
like...
I tell you about the burning ring of fire?
Oh yeah,
sure
the
I
ring
told
of
you.
fire, my body feeling like it's going to explode into a million different pieces.
Yeah.
Nope, you never told me about any of that. Thanks a lot. And I remember my mom actually saying to me, honey, why would I tell you? What's it going to do to tell you? It's just going to make you be more anxious. And then I remember my mom, my sweet mom, was like, I'm so happy that you're through with that and that you never have to go through that again.
Yeah.
So, anyways, back to your story.
Yeah.
It's traumatic though.
It is.
Yeah.
And there's so many wonderful parts about it, and having your baby at the end, like, of course you would do it all over again. And you do slowly forget.
You
right?
forget. It's crazy. It's actually crazy.
You forget and you do it again. But, so on to home birth.
Yes. Back to our topic.
After having that experience in the hospital, I wouldn't say it was a negative experience, but it just wasn't it wasn't what I envisioned.
Mm-hmm.
And I did feel like, oh my God, I was not prepared for that.
Mm-hmm. And I think we should be clear that, like, home birth is not for everyone, and it wasn't for me. It was like, I had my first baby in the hospital. It was traumatic, but I also, like, I chose to have my baby in the hospital again because that's where I felt safe. Totally. And that's where my husband felt safe.
Yeah.
Different for everybody.
Totally.
Yeah.
Totally. So with my second, I sort of had home birth in the back of my head, and a good friend of mine had a home birth. She had a home birth and didn't tell a soul until after the baby was born. It was like, had him at home. And we were all like,
That's
what?
crazy.
You had him at home? And it sort of blew my mind because she was someone who's very safety conscious and very like by the book. Like, she's a rule follower. And I was sort of like, wow, that to me is you're so brave. You're being a risk taker. And I was just surprised that she did it. And so it made me start thinking, I'm like, oh, if she did it, maybe I can do it. And with both my pregnancies, I read this book by Ina May Gaskin called The Guide. The Guide to Natural Childbirth, or A Guide to Childbirth by Ina May Gaskin. And she's a very famous midwife. It's a great book. It's just tons and tons of birth stories. And it's not saying like whether to have, it's not advocating really in either direction, because she helps women give birth in hospitals. She helps women give birth in birthing centers and at home. And it's stories of C-sections. It's stories of quick home birth. It's stories of water birth. It's all these different stories. which I really appreciated, because I think when I was pregnant, I just wanted to devour other people's stories and get as much education.
You're kind of like, obsessed about it.
As I could, to be prepared. And reading her book, and then the Business of Being Born movie, and talking with my friends who had the home birth.
I love that movie.
Yeah,
so great.
I started to think about it. So, fast forward 5.5 years later, I'm having my second baby. With my husband and I are discussing, our options and what we want to do. And I was adamant about midwives again, and he had a lot of questions because he hadn't had a baby before, and so we met with the midwives, and again, they were awesome. And then I sort of broached the subject. I was like, what would you think about a home birth? And he wasn't totally against it. He was sort of like, wow, I never thought about that. I don't know. And so we had a lot of conversations with our midwives about home births and if that was something we wanted. And for me, my dream, I'm such a water baby. I love the water. I love the ocean. I love swimming. And with my first, I so badly wanted to be in water. I wanted to be in the bath laboring, and I couldn't. And that was,
me too.
Yeah.
Me too.
And that was really disappointing and really hard for me. So with the second, I was like, okay, I think I want to have the baby in the water. I want to try and have the baby in the water. And so along with that often comes home birth. Like, yeah. You can do it at the hospital, I think. Like, I've had friends that have labored.
Because not all the rooms have baths. And so, and that's the thing, is you don't know if you're going this is at women's, I think, in particular. I could be wrong, but my memory is that not all the rooms have baths, and you don't know what room you're going to end up in.
No, it's sort of.
So the plan of having a home birth, or not a home birth, a water birth, is like, it's
if you're having hospital birth, you can't know for sure.
Yeah, you don't know for sure if you're going to get a bath.
Yeah, and then if you do have a doctor, or if a doctor's involved, I don't think doctors often do water births. I think it's
I didn't know.
Mostly midwives do it.
Yeah.
So I had this dream of a water birth, and so my husband and I talked about it a lot. We did some research. We followed a bunch of different Instagram accounts.
Oh yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
The Birth Hour is an awesome one that is a podcast and Instagram account that we follow and post tons of awesome birth stories. And so we did our research and we thought about it, and we decided we were going to go for it. And so I started researching renting a birthing pool.
Do you remember telling your brother? Do you remember what he said?
So
announcing it to the family that Stina was going to have a baby in his basement.
So my brother and I we're quite different. We my brother is very like science. I don't know, you can talk about this more, but very science and
factual.
Fact oriented, and I'm very like
does his research.
Yes.
Research things to death.
Yes. I'm very like emotional and heart and like I don't know.
What feels right.
Yeah, what feels right.
And natural. And he's like, you're crazy. These are the facts. What are you doing? How could you take this risk? I can't, he just couldn't come to terms with you taking this possible risk that something could happen to you and your baby. And it was like, and then it was just like the thought of his sister birthing in his house.
I think at one point he's like, that's it. I'm going to write in your rental agreement that there are no home births allowed in my house. And I was like, I'm just going to do it and not tell you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Great. Oh, that's so funny.
Yeah. So he was not comfortable with it. Even he wasn't comfortable with it even up until
the very time it happened. And then when it happened, he was like, oh, that was pretty cool.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I was just like so excited. I couldn't believe that you were going to birth like in the same house as us. So cool. Yeah. So then you started the process, doing your research, looking for the supplies that you needed.
Yeah. So we did a lot of reading, a lot of chatting with the midwives and asking questions and educating ourselves around if this was the right decision for us. I mean, we live 5 minutes from the hospital, which is quite reassuring if anything were to go wrong. Like that for me was very reassuring for me. So I always sort of knew in the back of my head, like at any point I could pull the cord, right? Like at any point I could say, nope, I'm not feeling this. I want to go to the hospital.
Yes.
Yeah. But yeah, we got everything ready. We rented a birth pool. We had it blown up in our suite for many weeks before labor even happened. Had it ready to go, and had all the supplies. We had a birthing ball, like one of those exercise balls, ready to go. And yeah, we were just sort of waiting. There was a time when I was probably 8 months, where we found out the baby was breech, and we thought that maybe we weren't going to be able to have a home birth, and we had a scheduled manual, I forget what it's called, version where the doctors at the hospital were going to try and push the baby into the right direction,
which is painful.
Apparently it's quite painful, and I was terrified. And we also had a scheduled C-section planned.
Oh, right. I remember that. Yes.
Yeah, because he was breech, so I didn't know whether or not we'd be able to have a home birth. I know it's possible to have a breech baby home birth, but there's a lot of risks, and I wasn't comfortable taking those risks. Well, it's possible to have a vaginal breech baby, but I wasn't comfortable taking those risks at the time, and neither was my husband. So we started trying all these other less conventional, let's call them, strategies to flip the baby, and we were in Operation Flip the Baby. And again, I'd had a friend that had a breech baby, and so she gave me lots of advice, and one of my husband's best friends is a naturopath, and so she was helping us with suggestions too. And one of the things we tried is moxibustion. Do you remember this?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I remember.
When I tell people, they still think it was crazy. But it's an acupuncture technique where you take this charcoal stick and you light it, you burn it, so it's sort of like a ember. I don't know, it's hot. And then you circle it around your baby toes. Because it's an acupuncture pressure point. Right. And it's supposed to help move the baby.
Right.
I don't remember all the details. So I was going for acupuncture, and we were doing moxibustion, and we were doing it every night. So I remember I would lay on the couch, and we'd actually sit outside on our patio and do it, because the smell from the smoke was kind of gross. So we'd lay on the couch outside, and my husband would circle this charcoal stick thing around my baby toe. I can't remember how long.
So funny. It's
so
weird.
Set a timer. And then afterwards you do all these crazy sort of poses where you try and invert yourself so that the baby can flip, and you provide space for the baby. There are lots of yoga poses too, where you're trying to provide space for the baby to actually move. And I would even go to the local pool near our house, the swimming pool. The lifeguards hated me, and I would do handstands. So there'd be this 9-month giant pregnant woman doing handstands in the pool.
Oh, I can visualize that right now.
Trying to get the baby to flip. Oh, yeah. Anyways, it worked. In the end, he flipped. Yeah, he flipped. And I don't even remember. I don't know how it happened. I don't know if it was the moxibustion. I don't know if it was the pool.
A little bit of everything.
A little bit of everything. There was one night I was lying in bed, and I was like, maybe that was a big movement. I don't know. I think it happened while I was sleeping.
And so he was a day early? Was he a day early?
No, he was a week.
A week early?
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, my first was a day early.
Oh.
Second was a week early. So he'd flipped, and we were like, okay, he flipped.
He's ready.
Get him out before he flips again.
Yeah.
And then the same thing happened as my first. My water broke in the middle of the night, and I did not go into labor.
Right.
I remember I went pee, I got up and went to the bathroom, and as I was walking back from the bathroom, all of a sudden it was like a whoosh, and I was standing in the middle of the living room in a puddle of water. And I was like, babe, I think my water just broke. And so, it's like 1 a.m, and he's like, ready to go. And all of a sudden
we're going to going to the hospital.
Yeah.
Call the midwives.
And nothing happened. So again, it was sort of the waiting game. As my water slowly trickled out, we just waited for me to go into labor. And then I remember we were hanging out with you guys.
Yes. So that was the night. We were all up here with our 2 boys. I was still pregnant.
Yeah.
I was like a month behind you.
Yeah.
3 weeks.
Yeah, 3 weeks.
And we were watching E.T.
Oh yeah, it was E.T. We were watching
E.T. with
and
the
eating
kids.
pizza.
And eating pizza again. Because you had said, I'm a pizza. I'm pretty sure it's got to happen tonight because it happened with pizza last time.
Yeah.
So we had ordered pizza. We're sitting here and...
I drank the midwife's cocktail.
Yes.
Which is like a interesting...
Okay, so what's in that cocktail? Do you remember?
I don't know if you're supposed to tell people because I think you have to do it like safely with your midwife's supervision.
Right.
So I don't remember exactly, but I know that you could probably Google it.
There's castor oil in it.
There's castor oil in it, and there's a few other things, and it doesn't taste very good.
It's awful. I took it too.
Yeah.
Didn't do anything for me.
Yeah, the first time I tried it, it didn't do anything. But this time, I remember I was sitting on your couch with like a absorbent pad underneath me because my water was still like leaking.
Right. Oh my
on your
God.
couch, watching E.T., eating pizza, and drinking this cocktail, trying to get labor happening. And all of a sudden, I kept being like, "Oh, Bre, I feel like I have to go to the bathroom."
Like number 2.
Yeah, I feel like I have to go to the bathroom.
And I was like, "Oh, there it is."
And I'm
it's
like,
time.
no.
Because that was my thing, was that it felt like I had like, to me it felt like diarrhea cramps when my labor was starting.
Yeah, I kept feeling like this pressure and like, oh, I have to go to the bathroom. I kept trying. I think I tried like 4 times. And then you're like, this is it. And then Stefan's freaking out. He's like, oh my God, let's go get the pool ready. Oh my gosh. And I remember
we start boiling water. We had like pots all over the house, on the stove, boiling water, boiling kettles.
To make sure we had enough hot water for the birthing pool.
Because we were worried we were going to run out of hot water.
Yeah. And so I remember Stefan was like pacing, and you stayed totally calm. You downloaded an app for me and started timing my contractions.
Yes.
You're like, no, this is it. Every time you feel like you have to go to the bathroom, that's a contraction. I still didn't believe you. I was like, no. And you started recording it. And you're like, yeah, these are contractions. It's happening every 6 minutes.
Getting more consistent.
And then I remember Stefan and my husband went downstairs and they started filling up the pool with water, and it took quite a while. And then I was like, I think I should go downstairs too. And we left my older son upstairs with you, and you had the boys.
Yeah. And you called your mom and dad. They came over.
Well, I went downstairs. I can't remember if I called them first or if I called the midwife first. I think I called the midwife first when I realized. Yeah. Because I remember leaning up against the bunk bed and calling the midwife, and she was like, she could hear in my voice, I guess, that it was happening quickly. And she was like, okay, we'll be right there. And I was like, oh, really? You're coming right away? Okay.
Because it progressed quite fast for you.
So fast.
Yeah.
So fast.
Like it went from like you feeling like you were having diarrhea cramps.
Yeah.
To like you now downstairs pacing.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, and then I remember coming down and checking on you. I don't know, I brought you something and you were like leaning up against a wall. Like, this is happening. Yeah.
And then I had the ball, the exercise ball.
Yeah.
And I remember leaning up against the exercise ball for quite a while and just breathing through the contractions. And I had this like vivid thing in my head. I was like, I remember this all. It's all coming back to me now. All these feelings are familiar.
Yeah.
And and then the midwives came, and I had 3 midwives because there was a student midwife who came, so I was actually really lucky to have 3 midwives. And
which is so crazy to think in that space that you had like that
many
800 people down there.
Feet. Yeah, we had a birth pool, 3 midwives, my husband, my mom.
Yeah, here with the kids and your dad.
Oh yeah.
And we had E.T. playing so loud because we were so worried that the kids were going to hear you screaming and that they were going to hear all the action going on downstairs, and we didn't want them to be worried about you.
Yeah.
And it, like, within a matter of an hour, right, it started to really progress. Like, it was like we started to hear screaming.
Yeah. Well, the midwives arrived and they right away started setting everything up. And I was watching all the stuff they were pulling out. I was like, whoa, they've got so many supplies. Like, I couldn't believe all the medical supplies they had. And they were laying everything out. They told us to have like our kitchen table clear. So we had an area for them to set everything up, and they were setting everything up. And I was
cool how it unfolds, right?
Yeah. And I was
like, when it's go time. It's like everybody comes and is ready. They show up and they do their thing.
Yeah, and everyone just knew what to do, and I was laboring, and
So were you in the bath now, or were you still kind of pacing?
No, I waited quite a while because the midwives told me that sometimes when you go in the bath, it slows down labor because it actually calms you down, or into the birthing tub. So I was trying to labor outside of the birthing tub. So I was using the ball. My husband had lit candles and put on music and tried to like make this
so nice.
low lighting. And I had asked him, like, as soon as my water had broken, I'm like, oh, you need to go get supplies for the midwives, like snacks. And so I had sent him out, and he like in this like, you know, panic had spent like hundreds of dollars on this charcuterie platter that he created for the midwives. And I baked banana bread and all these things you do when you're like waiting.
That's so nice.
And in the end, like, I think the midwives ate my banana bread, but the charcuterie platter never made it out.
Yeah. That's a nice thought.
Yeah,
I'm
but
sure
we kept telling them, we're like, I have food for you. Do you guys want food? And they're like, no, we're good. Yeah, and so I was laboring with the ball for quite a while. And then I remember they had to like check me, and so I had to move to the bed. And when I moved to the bed, I started throwing up. And I think both times when I threw up, it was transition time, and it's the time when you're starting to get ready to push. I think that's when you're 10 centimeters. I can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
I
don't know.
Yeah. So it was transition time, and so I had a really big contraction while they were checking me on the bed, and I started throwing up again. And then I was like, I think I want to go in the pool. I remember when I got off the bed, and they're like, okay, like, but your labor might slow down. And I was like, well, that's okay. I just really want to try it out and see how it feels. And I had learned this breathing strategy from my acupuncturist who I saw throughout my pregnancy, and who helped also with the baby flipping. And she had taught me, like, when she was doing acupuncture, sometimes she did certain points that would hurt or that would sort of like start labor feelings. And so she taught me how to do this like shushing thing, and it was different than any breathing technique I'd ever learned before. And basically, like, as you're having a contraction, you try and relax your mouth, because your mouth is actually connected. Like, the tension in your mouth is somehow connected to your like vulva and the muscles down there. Yeah. And so she was teaching me like how when you're feeling tension, to try and relax your mouth and make this shushing sound. And so I was doing this shushing breathing, and it really, really helped me. So I've told a lot of people about this.
You told me about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think I did use it too. And
did you?
I think I liked it. It worked.
It was something that was like easy to focus on. And
it was like my gas mask.
Yes, like the gas. Exactly. Exactly. So I was shushing through my contractions, and then I wanted to go into the pool, and so we decided to try it out. And so I got into the birthing pool, and I remember just feeling like it wasn't quite hot enough. And so they were trying to put more hot water, and my mom was getting hot water and like pouring it on my back and putting like warm cloths on me. She kept getting like warm cloths and putting it on my back. And then I had my husband, he was in front of me. So I was in the birth pool on my knees, facing, like, sort of leaning on the edge of the pool and facing my husband, and I wanted to hold on to his arms. And so I was holding on to him, and so he had his arms on the side of the pool, and I had my arms. I was holding on to him, and he was sort of like kneeling for a long time. And so with each contraction, I would breathe through it, shushing and holding onto his arms, and shake his arms really, really hard as I was breathing through the contractions. And then all of a sudden, I noticed the midwife started to move really fast, and everything sort of
get into action.
Yeah, I was like, oh, something's happening, and
which is so cool. Like, I love seeing that. I loved seeing that in the hospital too, and it was like go time, and everybody's like, yeah, like game time, let's go, let's do this, and everybody, and then you like there's like hype in the room.
Yeah, but you're kind of like focused on what you're doing, and you notice subconsciously like that things are changing around you, but you're still like in this zone of trying to get through these contractions. Yeah. And so all of a sudden things started shifting, and the midwives had been like checking the baby, checking the heart rate, kept checking me, but I was sort of not aware of it. I was in this like weird zone. I was totally focused on trying to get through my contractions and the shushing and the shaking. And then all of a sudden my body just took over. And
which is the weirdest feeling ever.
Yeah.
Because it's like, something inside of you is just trying to push that baby out, and it's like, you have no control. It's such a weird feeling. It's so cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. At the time, I remember just being like, oh, I'm like, I'm pushing. I don't even know. Like, I'm not trying to push, but I'm pushing. And
it's coming.
Yeah. And I remember one of the midwives looked at me. She's like, just listen to your body. Just let your body, like, it's okay. Let it go. Like, I was like, but I don't want to tear. Like, I was so worried about tearing. Because I remember, like, I was scared that if I just let my body take over, that it would happen too fast.
Yeah, there's a part of you that wants to be able to still try and control it.
Totally.
And then you're just like, well, I have no control at all. Like, whatever it is, the universe is saying, I'm taking over now.
Yeah.
It's bizarre.
So bizarre. So I remember, my body just started taking over. And I remember the midwives were telling me that I had to stay under the water because it's really important when you're having a water birth that when the baby's head comes out, they come into the water because as soon as they hit air, they have an instinct to breathe.
Right. So they could choke on the water.
Yeah. So if they hit air, if they come out into the air and then into the water, they could actually choke and drown.
Wow.
So you have to be really careful to keep your entire body under the water. So I found that quite difficult because I felt like my body was splitting in two. I felt like my body was completely
that's
taking.
how it feels.
Yeah.
Like your body's gonna explode into a million pieces.
Yeah. And then I felt like I had no control. So for me to have to then, I felt like I was doing the splits. Like I was trying to get deeper and deeper in the water. And I didn't really like that part about the water birth because I found it difficult to get deep enough down in a comfortable position. And then the water was cold. But eventually, they were like, okay, it's time, it's happening. Like, make sure you stay under the water. You've got this. And then before I knew it, they were like, oh, do you want to reach down and catch your baby? And I was like, I don't know if I can. And so the midwife kind of helped me. She helped me catch the baby. And then I pulled the baby up between me and my husband. And we're pulling him up and I'm going to start to cry. I'm looking at my husband and he's crying. And then we're holding the baby and I'm holding him between us. And the midwife was there supporting us. And he looked at me and he's like, oh my God, that was amazing. Let's do this again. I looked at him like, you've got to be kidding me.
Yeah, it was amazing for you.
Yeah. And it was pretty magical.
Amazing.
And compared to my first birth, I felt very empowered and I felt very in control of what was happening. Mm-hmm. And giving birth that way, it did feel, I know people have talked about orgasmic birth and it didn't quite feel like that, but it felt very satisfying. I was the pushing this time around and the ring of fire wasn't so bad the second time.
Yeah.
When the pushing was happening, I don't know if that was the water, if it was the second baby, but it was very satisfying. And then we pulled him out and the midwives checked him and took care of him. He had the umbilical cord wrapped around his neck, so they quickly flipped the umbilical cord off of his neck and then wrapped him up and then we had our baby.
And there was your baby. And when we were upstairs listening to all of this, and I just remember we were hovering over the stairs, and I remember just I remember hearing you do your the final push, and it was just this massive scream, blood curdling, totally almost animalistic scream. And then the baby started crying. Yeah. It was instant. Yeah. It was from your scream, your final push to the baby crying was within seconds. Yeah. And it was we were oh my God, the baby's here. And it was you go from pregnancy to now there's a baby in your arms, in our house. In
the basement.
Baby's here. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, such an amazing story. And I mean, it is such a unique experience and to each their own. But I guess the big question is, in sort of finishing up here and rounding up our podcast, so first of all, are you considering a third or your third baby, but a second home birth? And would you recommend it to people? What are your thoughts on all of it?
Yeah, with the third one coming, I think I'm trying to be very relaxed and open-minded about it. I sort of feel I don't know. And I don't know if I'm going to make the decision until the end.
And the third one can be a total wild card too.
Yes.
That's what they say, right? Your second one comes pretty fast usually.
Yeah.
And third one can you have no idea what you're in for.
Yeah. So I don't know what to expect. And And I don't know, like there's the whole issue of being breech and the water breaking in advance, and there's all these things that could lead to you not being able to have a home birth, not even having that option. I think what the midwives said to me with the second, when I was thinking about the home birth, they said, it's safe to have a baby at home. It's safe to have a baby in the hospital. It's not safe to have a baby in the car.
Right.
So if you are the type of person who has really fast labors and deliveries, you may want to consider being prepared for a home birth. So I think that what we'll do this time is we'll prepare. I don't think I'll do the birthing pool again.
Yeah. Let's talk about that.
Yeah, that's like water birth and birthing pool. That's a whole other thing, and it's really important to do your research and read about it. But I personally, I felt cold after I gave birth. I was still in the water. I really wanted to get out of the water.
Shivering.
Yeah, I was shivering. I remember I had to get into bed, and the midwives were like wrapping me, and my husband was wrapping me in blankets because I was shivering.
That would make my decision for me. I couldn't handle being cold. Yeah. Like, no. I mean, if I couldn't do it in my bathtub where I could continue to like heat the water up, that would do it for me because I'm getting like the chills thinking of it.
Yeah. And everyone was trying. Like, you guys were boiling the water upstairs and bringing it down, and we had all the extra hot water. But afterwards,
it's such a big pool that it's impossible to keep it warm.
And then being just wet. Like, my hair ended up being wet, and I was wet afterwards. And when they were sort of, like, checking me out and stitching me up at the end, I remember just, like, getting these chills. I was shivering, and I had a really hard time warming up. So... and there is quite a cleanup afterwards. Thank goodness for my wonderful husband who cleaned it all up, and the midwives. But yeah, there's quite a bit of cleanup afterwards. So I don't know if I would do the pool again. I think that I would prepare for a home birth and have all the materials and all the supplies that you need. But always be open-minded to a hospital birth because... And
birth like on your bed or just not, or birth like just in your home, like not necessarily have the pool.
Yeah, not with the pool. Yeah. Just, if I can be in the bath, I'd probably be in the bath for a bit, but probably end up giving birth on the bed. But yeah, so I think I'm going to be open to it. I'm going to think about it.
Your midwives have all the resources. I mean, any questions you have, they'll have the answers for. They provide you too, right, with a list of all sorts of things that you need in order to prepare. And they were a huge resource. They answered all our questions. They had DVDs and videos and books that we read and all sorts of things to sort of prepare ourselves and be prepared. Yeah. Oh, well, great. I mean, I think that finishes up our podcast and hopefully shed some light on the whole topic of home birth and answer some questions.
Yeah, and I mean, if anyone has any questions, please let us know. I'm not an expert. I'm not a midwife, but yeah, I'm happy to share my experiences and hope that sort of, if anyone has any questions or is considering whether to have a hospital birth or a home birth or midwives or doctors, I know when I was pregnant, it just helped me so much to hear other people's stories to help me make my choices and become as educated as I possibly could around all my options and feel empowered in my decisions.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, guys, that's it. And if you want to sort of stay up to date on all of the latest stuff that we're working on and our upcoming podcasts, you can follow us at The Mindful Mummies on Instagram. And that's it for the day.
Hope everyone is doing well. If you live in Vancouver, you're enjoying this beautiful sunshine along with us.
Yeah, it feels like spring out there.
It's gorgeous.
All right, guys, have a wonderful day, and we will catch you on the next podcast.
Catch you next time.